All right, we are live. It is the middle of November. Holy cow, time is flying by, and we are about to talk about what the heck is going on in Austin, Texas, and across the globe. And of course, with me is my partner in crime, Mr. Mark Koretzky. Mark, welcome this week.
Thank you for having me. It is so good to be back on this cold and wet day, and it is the middle of November. I don't know how we're here.
We are here, and you're looking quite dapper. You had a big weekend, by the way.
I did. I officially got baptized. It was super exciting, surrounded by a lot of my close friends and just people I love. And so it was an awesome weekend.
Oh, well, congratulations on that. That is a once in a lifetime thing, I guess, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it's definitely the first time as an adult, so I can tell
Okay.
you that. So that was exciting.
All right. Well, I'm excited for you. I know you take that part of yourself to heart in such a big way. So, congratulations on that. And with that said, I'm taking Austin to heart and what the heck is going on with dumpster fires and all of the Fed and voting. And what are your thoughts, Mark?
Last week was a lot. Not only all of the news, but then Veterans Day, which is always difficult for a lot of my friends and family. And so there was a lot going on. There was good, there was bad, there was ugly. At the end of the day, we had an incredible CPI inflation report and a market reaction, which improved interest rates, which everybody took a big sigh of relief and had a lot of fun shopping over that holiday weekend. So I think that we got to take the good with the bad, and we continue to.
Well, I think so. I mean, and that's life. If we're in 50% black squares and 50% white squares, then we just have to decide that we're going to get through the square that we don't want to be on and hop to the next. So, with that said, I'd love to just jump into numbers real quick and then talk about your new 321 buy down and a couple other things that are going on here in Austin. Does that sound good?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
All right. So, shockingly, we continue to remain very flat with our number of homes for sale in Austin. We're at 10,066. So, that seems to be our sweet spot right now in homes for sale. And when we look at it real quick, we had 115 price increases. We had 1,668 price decreases.
17%.
Yep.
I think that number is down though, right? Over the last couple of weeks, I feel like it used to be in the 20s.
I feel like so much of it is flat because last week we had price increases, although I think we had 200 price increases last week and our price decreases was relatively the same. But what's interesting is when we look at what's happening also in the market is we've stuck solid with we had 100 houses that a day that went under contract in the past week and we had 100 houses a day that came out for new listings. So that is exactly the same as it's been for a good couple of weeks now.
I think that's really great. I think we were talking off air about kind of the demographics of just Travis County in general. And
Yep.
so I think if we really look at it, we've got, I think it was 1.3 million population for Travis County. And so 100 a day, I mean, that helps serve those people, right? I think
Absolutely.
I would like to see that number higher, but I know a lot of buyers that have their foot on the sidelines right now. And so I think it makes sense that it's not.
Yeah, and for those who are just, who aren't as familiar with Austin or may be thinking about moving to Austin, Travis County actually makes up almost half of the entire Austin metro area, which is sitting at 2.176, I think is what we were talking about earlier in terms of total population. What's interesting about that, though, I'd love to talk to you about is the breakdown in the age demographic and then how that pertains to what we're seeing in the market in the price points that we're looking at and then in the price decreases that we're looking at.
Well, so at the end of the day, we don't really think about it, but demographics drive real estate, and demographics lead into kids, and they
Mm-hmm.
lead into schools and really the school year. And
Yep.
those impact us and the real estate industry more than I think any other industry that I can think of.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, what causes somebody to buy their first home ultimately determines the strength of that market in and of itself.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, more often than not, it's get married, have kids, buy a house, right? And so the biggest segment of that 1.3 million people is
Yep.
27 to 35-year-olds. There's over 200 64,000 of them, which is a bulk of the population. From there, the second biggest is the 36 to 44. And actually, the smallest segment of the population is the 55 to 64. And so, for the long term trends of what that means, that's
Mhm.
really strong housing demand.
Yep.
Because at the end of the day, we're anticipating 25,000 per year household formations.
Yep.
So we need 25,000 per year just for those first time home buyers, never mind the majority of the entire population, which is everybody else, right? And
Yep.
so at the end of the day, I think it's a good thing. And the fundamentals are there for Austin and Travis County.
Absolutely. Austin is even looking at some rezoning that I know that has kind of been going on for a while and trying to exchange some commercial space to allow residential building in order to help offset the fact that we need so many houses here just to keep up. So that said, and breaking down those numbers a little further, when we consider the people who are getting married and having kids, the 36 to 44 group, that's 217,000 people that are sort of in that sweet spot, if you will, of, either moving into their first house or moving into their second house with kids. And that is a fascinating space because I, as you know, like you, I do look at demographics. Taking that holistic approach is so important. And so when I also look fundamentally at where prices are dropping in the market, there's a lot of value for those folks because when we look at houses now, I'm talking about the whole Austin MSA, but when we look at houses that are under 500,000 that took a bit of a price decrease last week, Mark,
Mhm.
929 of those fell under $500,000.
And it's what
This is
we've been
good for
talking
those
about,
first time
right?
buyers.
Right. It's the first time buyers. It's the fact that there is an affordability crunch
Yep.
and those sellers need to sell anyway, right? Nobody wants to list their house if they don't need to list their house. And so, yeah, we're seeing it. And at the end of the day, what we're also seeing in reality on the back end, once we get these contracts executed, is the appraisal prices are still coming in above and much closer to what that list price is.
Yep.
And so we again, to avoid leaving money on the table and theoretical equity in the home, we're actually going back to those sellers and renegotiating and getting concessions to be able to use for whatever the buyer deems is best for them.
Absolutely. And that's, partly on my negotiation and then on your end, knowing, the value of every single dollar that we can put into a house and how you can work your magic with buyers so that you make their money go further. So that said, I'm going to continue and tell you that when we look at home prices that are between, so again, 1,668 decreases in home prices. Now, how much? It depends. It can be just fractional. And in Austin, we are not going to see the erase of gains that some markets are, given how Austin is growing year over year over year in double digits. But when we look at houses that are 500,000 to $749,000, we've got 481 of those. So let's call it 480. Had a bit of a price decrease. And then when we take the jump to that next level, so let's call it our 45 to 54-year-olds, perhaps. I'm just using that as an example. We had 133,000 folks, I think that you and I were talking about, that 163,000 fall into that sort of 45 to 54 category. So they'll be kind of happy to know that between 750,000 and a million, 165 houses took decreases. So again, it goes back to the same thing, Mark, which we've been talking about for weeks. That price point between the 500,000 and just under a million is, generally speaking, between, like, it's not a half, but it's more than a third of all of the price decreases, which is awesome for the population that we're talking to.
I think what's so interesting about Austin is it gets the rep of being the liberal city, right, within the
Yep.
DFW. But
Yep.
the citizens and the homeowners and the renters there, they are super fiscally conservative.
Hmm.
They have been saving and putting money away. And the homeowners that were able to purchase prior to the pandemic, I mean, the value gains that they've experienced are massive.
Yep.
And so, for anybody that is actually looking at real estate, don't look at it as a 6 month, what's going to happen, 12-month, 18-month, what is going to happen. That's not how or why you should buy real estate. And so when you look at it as a long-term investment and
Mhm.
one that in reality, one you need, whether you want to or not, you need to have shelter. And so it's better for you to own it and have it go up in price as opposed to rent it and see nothing from it.
Yes, and we're also at the point where a lot of people are in some ways stuck because rent prices have gone up dramatically. Yet, when you talk to people who own multi-purpose, I've got a really good friend who owns thousands of units across the nation. And just listening to him recently, he's at like 100% capacity. And usually, like he'll have buildings that can change like up to 50% over the year. But right now, people are kind of staying put because of some of the price points and what's been going on. And other people are staying put because they're wondering what's going to happen with the market.
I mean, like the great Klaus Schwab said, you're going to rent everything and you're going to like it. And that's what we're seeing, right? And so it is a continual pressure in order to continue to make people rent as opposed to own. And so we're seeing it all across the board. And I
Yep.
think it's up to each and every one of us to say no and say enough is enough and actually get your piece of the American dream because that's why we have it. The fact that we have a 30-year fixed mortgage to begin with, where you can do minimum down with 5%, even if you're not a first time home buyer, that is a blessing and that is something that we cannot take for granted. And so it's up to each and every one of us to attain it for ourselves.
Yeah. And when you look at who's been attaining and who's been maintaining, and when we look at the homes that are for sale in the city, going back to that, because I like to hammer the numbers of the price decreases, only 107 of the houses of that 1,668, only 107 of them were between a million and 2 million. And then there were like 37 that were above that. So that's 144 houses that were $1 million plus that took any sort of price decrease in the last week. It's not a lot. It's like, a percent.
It's the average American that's taking the brunt of it.
For sure.
It
For sure.
and it comes down to that ability and how much money is out there in play or lack thereof,
Yep.
right? And
Yep.
that's what it all comes down to. I think that's why so many conversations that I'm having both with business owners and with employees is how do we monetize side hustles? Because at the end of the day, you can budget all day and you can save as much money as you possibly can. But at the end of the day, it's always going to come down to a function of income. And that's what's going to allow you to live the life that you're really meant to live.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We have to have money from somewhere. And, this is where house hacking, I think, is going to become more prevalent, where people are going to rent rooms in their homes where before they may not have considered that as an option. And it's a smart one. I mean, coming from Canada, my house had a complete separate entrance and I rented out my basement apartment. I mean, it was great down there. It had all these windows and it felt light and airy. But here we don't have basements. So just having separate entrances and considering how your space is being used right now in order to allow revenue to come in while you're busy bringing your expenses down, I think is super smart.
It's genius, and I think so few of us actually look to our friends and family and actually bring on partners in it.
Yep.
I saw a clip the other day, like there is over $1 million in every single one of our families. It's just we're each paying $2,000 a month to rent, as opposed to pooling our resources to actually take down the real estate and start to actually earn money from it. And
Yeah.
so I think it would behoove a lot of college age people and just like recent grads to actually go out there, partner up with a close family, friend, or otherwise business partner,
Mm-hmm.
and actually attain something for yourself while you're going out and working the nine to five.
I agree. And when we look around us, when we look at entrepreneurs around the world, so many people are not 9 to 5. And I was hearing a stat the other day about something like 1 in 3 people that you may be talking to are not a 9 to 5. And so with that said, people pay for certainty. And if I know for sure I can rent a room from you, Mark, for a certain price point and it's fixed every single month, and that I have a house to come home to and I can take a hot shower, then I can start to also look at like, okay, what are my car payments? What are the other things in my life to really financially be responsible to that greater, longer term. And let's face it, we all have our own problems, if you will, to solve. And some are shorter term and some are longer term. But for us to make it to the longer term and then thrive, we have things to consider now that we haven't in the past. So with that said, let's talk about a 3-2-1 buy down.
Yeah, so I have been waiting for this to get rolled out.
Yeah.
We've had a 2-1 buy down. I'll explain more about it, but we just rolled out as of today, the 14th, a 3-2-1 buy down. So right now, although rates are better than they have been in weeks past, they're still relatively high. And so this is a great option for a buyer to actually reduce significantly and in a dollar for dollar cost basis their mortgage rate and their payments over the first 3 years of the life of the loan. So quick, easy example, let's just keep round numbers. Let's say he's able to qualify with a 7% rate. For the first 12 months, the rate is going to be 3% less. So
Okay.
if you wanted a year ago's rates, now's your chance because your payment would be based off of 3% less than 7, meaning 4%.
Okay.
For the following 12 months, meaning year 2, it would be 2% less than the fixed rate. So now you're at 5%. And then that third year, the final 12 months, your payment is based off of 1% less, meaning 6%. And so whatever that comes down to and adds up to as a payment reduction over those first 3 years, that's the cost that somebody would pay. Now, in reality, it's a significant amount of money, and that's why there's so much power to it. And so you and I, we were just talking about it, right? With the price reductions that we're seeing, and you don't necessarily know how big the reductions are. What I've been talking about with a lot of real estate agents, if we're entertaining a price reduction, let's keep that price reduction to an absolute minimum. So that way you can actually refresh it and make it be a hot new reduction in front of buyers' eyes. And then how do we use a concession to attract more buyers and allow that home to be more affordable for them? This 3-2-1 buy down, the 2-1 buy down, they're awesome options. And so we're seeing a lot of sellers much more willing, much more capable to actually give a credit to get that buyer, to get them to say yes, and to be able to move on from that home.
That's very cool for the 3-2-1 buy down. So it stretches it out an extra year, not knowing obviously what our economy is going to do. But if any of us had a crystal ball, then we wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation. We'd be somewhere on our island having the conversation with everything bought, paid for, and freedom all day long. So I love that there is this new option for people to consider, Mark. And thanks for bringing it out. So if you haven't heard about the 3-2-1 buy down and you have questions, by all means, please, Mark's information will be in the show notes as always. Please reach out to him. And if you have any questions directly about the Austin, Texas market and you want to know what's going on, what's happening with builders, what's happening with sellers, what's happening in individual neighborhoods, then please, by all means, please reach out and I will be happy to help you. If you have any thoughts or questions or comments for us this week, just know that our crystal ball is broken. We cannot tell you what's going to happen in a year from now. I did have a comment on our YouTube channel where the guy was like, boy, were you wrong. And I'm like, it was from December 2021. I'm like, dude, we've got a global economic impact here. It's not just me being quote unquote wrong. My crystal ball doesn't go out that far. In fact, it doesn't even hit till tomorrow. So
Listen, it takes a lot to make a forecast and a prognosis. And so whatever you do, I mean, make sure you're looking at the data and making an intelligent and the best guess that you can possibly make and take the punches when they come.
absolutely. And that's why we're doing this every week, so that if you do have questions or thoughts, we would love to hear from you, and feel free to reach out to either one of us directly. We are here to help at the end of the day, whether you are looking to make a move or not. The idea is to empower you in order to make the best possible decision for you and your family with the data that is known. And that's all we can do, is give you our best each and every time. And we are purpose driven here. We just want what's going to, at the end of the day, allow you to sleep in your bed, give you the options that make the most sense, and then allow you to make your decision from there.
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. All right. With that said, my name is Jennifer S. Goodman. I'm a realtor here in Austin, Texas.
And I'm Mark Koretsky, Movement Mortgage up here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. Pleasure to be with you as always, Jennifer.
Thank you, Mark. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll catch you next time.